Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply. In this video is to bring you a closer look at the Transatlantic. This is their part number SF-196DU. This is a flush bolt. Obviously, sorry for pointing out the obvious. I have it upside down. Well, maybe I don't. This is a flush bolt that is used in aluminum storefront. And aluminum storefront will... hardware that goes into aluminum storefront doors will always be... not always be, but will usually be hardware that is most conducive to the base material, aluminum. Aluminum, you can cut. You can use a variety of different cutting tools to do that. You can use a jigsaw, and you can use a die grinder. You can cut it with a skill saw. You can use a router, and that's the important part. A lot of that material for doors and frames are cut with a router, so you'll usually see radiused corner preparations on material. So that's why we are thinking that this would be, of course, for an aluminum door. Of course, the dead giveaway would be that radius face that you're really only going to see on aluminum doors. You'll see them on wood doors as well. And while this would not be appropriate for a wood door whatsoever. In fact, you wouldn't be able to get it installed onto a wood door. It would, in fact, be not possible because of the mounting ears. So the conspiring of the two things, the radius corners, whether it be a hinge or it be a flush bolt, and the fact that it has a radius face would be aluminum, storefront type material. The other hardware that's put on aluminum storefronts, if it's exit devices and whatnot, generally hand squaring out corners would not be done. And there are hinges that have, like, don't quote me, but maybe a 5/32 corner radius. I'm not sure of that size, I forget, but there are hinges that have a really small radius. Radiuses in hardware, whether it be a latch bolt or a strike plate, would be 1/4 inch radiused corners. For hinges, you'll have square corner, 1/4 inch radius, 5/8 radius. On those hinges for aluminum storefront, you'll find that smaller radius. But the point is, they're not square corner. So that would be why you see radius corner here. And I don't see these flush bolts installed necessarily in current aluminum storefront, but I'm not an aluminum door and frame expert, so I can't really say if this is, if these, my guesstimation would be that this flush bolt's a bit more of a legacy product that may not be used as much. Now, there are two different finishes available. The DU is a dark bronze, or it's like a powder-coated Duronodic, they call it. DU stands for Duronodic, a dark brown sort of paint. There's also aluminum. There are two different offsets that are included, and this is the only part that you really have to think about once you know that this is the right unit. The height and the width is what you're going to check, obviously. So the height of this bolt is about 4 3/16. The width of this bolt looks like it's about 7/8. The other dimension that you have to be thoroughly cognizant of is the offset. This is a 1/4 inch offset. From the mounting tab to the face is 1/4 inch. They also make these an 1/8 inch. So be mindful before you order these. Yeah, you'll look at that and say, "Oh, perfect, that's perfect." The length and the width of the faceplate matches perfectly. You have to measure the offset to be sure that it's correct. Once you do that, you're in good shape. This flush bolt will also include its rod. They say that this is a 12-inch rod. Nowhere on here does it measure 12-inch. And flush bolts are generally measured the top or the bottom of the door to the center of the faceplate. This rod, which by the way is typical 1/4-20 threaded rod, is just heavy on 11 inch, as you can see. Okay, 11 1/16. Now, when I thread this into the unit, you're going to really have to thread it in pretty deep, and I probably am threading the wrong end. I'm threading the wrong end because there is a longer threaded portion, which I believe to go into the lock body. And I say that because the short end does not allow me to thread the rod down far enough to even potentially reach a 12-inch top or bottom of the door to the center line. Now, if you have doors that are taller, like 8 foot, you can just swap this threaded rod out for a longer threaded rod. So from, well, you know what? That rod is also not going to be, representative necessarily of the top or the bottom of the door either. But you can see as we do that, we have the ability to get ourselves to a 12-inch range. So I'm well below 12-inch. The point is I've got that threaded all the way down. So when they say 12-inch rod, well, the rod's not 12-inch. It's 12-inch. You would say that this is a 12-inch flush bolt, and that's again reference to from the top of the door or the bottom of the door, depending if the flush bolt's at the top or the bottom, to the center line of the faceplate. Now, this is also going to include, there's a mystery screw in here, and I'm not comfortable with the fact that I don't know what it's for. I mean, I believe I know what it's for, but calling the vendor is not going to get the answer to the question. A plastic bolt head. Now, they'll say that these are made of nylon so that it slides easier. Okay, I wouldn't disagree that it would slide easier. I would also add to that, not as robust as a metal bolt head. Now, we can sell you metal bolt heads. The problem with that is they come with the guide as well, and that's what you are going to install into the top or bottom of the door. And that bolt head's going to go through there so that it can't spin or can't turn. Okay, you have to have that. There are 3 screws. There are 3 of these machine screws. 2 of them are for the body. Now, the way that these install into an aluminum door is you're going to pull that out and kind of use that as a handle. You're going to sneak that into the door, and then you're going to run the screws through the little countersink that's in the radiused edge of the door and into these tapped holes, top and bottom. Then you'll have that secure. But before you do that, I would very likely have my rod already attached, okay, and I would work the whole apparatus up into the door rather than trying to get that down into the door and then thread that in. The other reason you want to do that, you want to lay it to the edge of the door and decide where you need to be with that. This includes a 1/4-20 nut, and it's really not elegant for the 1/4-20 nut to be at the bottom, because it just doesn't appear to be intended to go there. I would, of course, very likely want that to sit up here so that I could have a counter force holding the rod to the mechanism. This won't rotate at all because it will be blocked. It will be prevented from doing so within the guide. So there are 3 of those screws. The third is likely for the face of the door where you're going to drill the guide, and then you'll rotate that in. Now, I'm not going to turn that in because I don't want to cut the threads in the plastic before the client is installing this. The final part is this mystery screw. That's such a wide thread that it would tell me that it would go in here, but it's too small of a screw. And I would love to know, if you know where that screw goes, why that's in this package. There are 10 flush bolts on this client's order, and they all have them. So I don't know what they're for, unfortunately. So there is some supporting documentation down below. Let's switch to the screen view and let's take a look. Okay, so this is the item that we're looking at, and this is under the name Transatlantic. What I know of Transatlantic is that they were an importer of Asian manufactured hardware, and I believe they were in business. I know that they were in business in the 1980s and 1990s. I believe that my family's business, my father, grandfather, great-grandfather in the hardware industry were purchasing from Transatlantic in the 1970s, because my father is related, just several stories naturally of the history of hardware, and I believe it was set in the 1970s. Now, how old Transatlantic was for how long they were in business, I don't know. But my experience with them was throughout the decade of the 1990s. There was a particular rep there. Her name is Sandy, and she was super great. At some point in the early 2000s, she retired in the sense that she moved to Arizona, but was still working from home. But at some point, the company Global bought Transatlantic. Now, Global is a name that you would know if you looked at door closers. The name Global is literally on the door closer. They bought the Transatlantic company, or their name, or maybe old inventory. I don't know. But that's where that name comes from. It doesn't exist. It's only a brand at this point. And I'm not even sure how much they market this brand. I'm sentimental because they have a particular product that is still available from the new company. Global, I understand, bought Transatlantic. They took both of those companies and turned them into a company called Imperial USA. And I'll show you where to find that catalog in a moment. So back to the extended description. Mortise bolt for all commercial storefront, aluminum, architectural aluminum narrow style, made for easy installation, and replaces most brands of storefront flush bolt. 12-inch rod, 1/4-inch offset, automatic spring loaded lever action. That's just on the bolt itself, on the handle, so to speak, or the flipper, or the term that the item they're calling the lever. Faceplate. We've discussed the faceplate dimensions. Distance from the mounting holes. I did not give that to you. Basically, just shy on 5 1/4. And I can tell you that appears to be incredibly accurate, absolutely accurate. They say 5 7/32, just a 32nd shy of 5 1/4. Made of nylon to prevent binding. Supplied complete with the 12-inch rod, square nylon bolt, nylon keeper, and fasteners, Duronodic finish. Now there is the product brochure here. Now that's just a throwback to the old Transatlantic catalog. Their book literally looked like this. This was their book, and it was a good 1.5 inches thick, soft bound, lots of, just a tremendous quantity of imported builder's hardware. And we really only delved into the exit devices and the door closers from Transatlantic originally. And sorry, I'm just scrolling through to find that page from that original book. Mortise flush bolts. The TA 195 is the 1/8 inch offset, and the 196 is the 1/4 inch offset. Okay. And they don't define what the offset is that I see, but again, it's the distance from the face of the mounting point here to the face of the plate. Okay. Now, if you're looking for this flush bolt, in my opinion, you're only trying to match the width, the height of the faceplate, and then the offset for your existing, possibly broken flush bolt, and that's all that I think that you're really going to be looking at this for. Now, the link here to the manufacturer's page will allow you to pull up all of the branded Transatlantic products that we sell. Their product catalog is not the original product catalog from Transatlantic. This catalog was a derivative of the post-sale to Global, and this catalog is from 2013. The predecessor of that catalog, that black and white catalog I showed you earlier, we don't have it in a single document. I think it's broken up into separate sections. Anyway, I'm just a sucker for older catalogs. That Imperial USA I had mentioned. So manufacturer's page in the site, and then you can do a find function for Imperial USA. And this will be all of the current products that were branded under Transatlantic or Global. They're now known as Imperial. They have, unfortunately, all new part numbers, which is where having the older catalog is really helpful, because if you order the SF-195 or 196, the 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch, they may not be able to tell you what that is because they don't have access perhaps to the older catalog. But we have it, so it's there. Now, Imperial USA, Global, Transatlantic, all sorts of material. They've been in business for a long time. I don't know the history of the people who own the material. Of late, they have been certainly making an attempt to improve relations by being proactive in problem solving, and I have to tip my hat to them for that. It will only in the long term serve them well. A variety of imported builders hardware. I have experience with some of this material, and that's just odd. That's This is clearly installed upside down, or shown upside down. You'll very occasionally see catalogs where they have photos that do not depict the accurate representation of how the product ought to look in the field. Yeah, that's obviously an oversight. That's done by someone who doesn't understand mortise locks, which, of course, is the majority of the population, right? Why it wouldn't work upside down? It would. You could put that lock in upside down if you wanted. The reason that it's wrong is because, well, if you ordered it a particular hand, it's going to come wrong. Also, the cylinder would be upside down, and that would be considered incorrect because of how the internal components of a pin tumbler cylinder would behave long-term when it's installed upside down. What I want to show you in this catalog, and if you were going to look at Imperial, it would be for their exit device, their 501. The ED501 device, we have literally sold bushel loads of these over the decades, and I've never had one fail. There was one that failed, and the reason it failed, and it's a longer story that I won't tell here, but it failed because the client called and said, your exit device is garbage, bring me a new one, no charge right now. Well, I happened to live about 2 miles away from the job site, so I just drove over. It was a Saturday early afternoon. I had no problem. I know this person. I went over there and realized, well, they welded the unit to the door and they vaporized a spring. So, still 1,000 batting average for the ED501. I would not hesitate that you use this. This is a slam dunk. It's grade 1. It's really inexpensive. It is reliable. It is predictable. It is inexpensive. It is inexpensive, if you follow my meaning. Great value there. Typical exterior trims. These are well suited for your exterior doors on strip malls, the back of that sort of stuff. Low volume use. It's going to perform flawlessly. I've never seen one break. So the rest of this catalog is helpful, but it's the typical culprits. Your exit devices, door closers, lock sets, hinges, aluminum storefront material, etc. And again, that name Global, if you know it, it's probably because you've seen it on a door closer body. Let's wrap up this video on camera. Okay, in conclusion, very typical sort of flush bolt that you're going to see in aluminum storefront. A lot of aluminum storefront material doors are certainly older rather than brand new, and you're going to bump into these. I'll generally see them in doors that are 20, 30 years old, things of that nature. And because they've got that nylon, which, the problem with the nylon bolt guide and the bolt head is that if you unintentionally stumble into the door or just hit it, you're going to run the risk of cracking that material because the entire installation is subject to that plastic guide with that one ill-fitting screw through the face of the door. So, you'll find they break because of that. The mechanism doesn't really break itself. The spring that's behind here, it's the Achilles heel of the balance of the installation. However, these are dreadfully inexpensive and disposable, I guess you might say, for as true as that is. Any questions on the SF-196 quarter-inch offset Duronodic flush bolt or any other Global, Transatlantic, Imperial USA product? Please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.